November has always been my least favourite month of the year. I love summertime, even though sitting in the sun can trigger migraine for me. But I just love the long days, not for lazing in the sun. I don't know, I just feel you can get so much done outside and in the garden. I love the spring too, even though the weather can be cold and quite frankly miserable, but I never cease to be awestruck by the incredible resilience of tiny little snowdrops or crocuses pushing their way up through snow or frozen ground to bloom and bring joy and hope. I love the colours of autumn too, but there's always a little voice reminding me that winter is coming. I usually dread winter. Maybe dread is too strong a word, but let's put it this way. I've never said that I'm really looking forward to November. But this year is the first time that I've consciously decided to take action, to do something to keep that winter melancholy at bay. Are you like me? Have you ever noticed that when the days get shorter, your mood seems to shrink too? Listen up if you're interested to find out whether you are imagining things or whether your brain is struggling because it's running low on daylight. Hello, I'm Savina Brennan and this is Super Brain, the podcast for everyone with a brain. Today I'm talking about sunlight, mood and the surprising ways our brains depend on light. Ever curious, I wanted to understand why some of us struggle when skies turn grey. What's really happening in our brains in winter? Does seasonal affective disorder, also known as SAD, really exist? And how can we use light to get through those darker winter months? So giving it a bit of context, humans have always worshipped the sun. Ancient Egyptians built temples to Ra, the sun god. Greek physicians prescribed heliotherapy, literally treatment by sunlight. Even Florence Nightingale insisted that hospital wards be flooded with light, believing it to be vital to recovery. She didn't know about serotonin or circadian rhythms, but she intuitively understood something science has now confirmed. Light is medicine. While SAD entered the psychiatric manuals in the 1980s, its roots go much deeper to our evolutionary past. Okay, so let's look at the science. Humans evolved near the equator, where days and nights are roughly equal. As our ancestors migrated north and south, they had to adapt to dramatic seasonal changes in daylight. Yet our brains still expect a steady stream of sunlight, and when that stream slows to a trickle, our mood chemistry follows suit. When light enters the eye, it's not just about seeing, it's about signaling. Specialized retinal cells send messages directly to the suprachiasmatic nucleus. That's the brain's master clock. This clock regulates everything from sleep and appetite to hormones and mood. And in winter, with fewer daylight cues, the clock drifts. Melatonin, the hormone that tells the brain it's time to sleep, lingers longer into the morning. And serotonin, the neurotransmitter that supports mood and motivation, stays lower. The result? We feel sluggish, we feel flat, and sometimes profoundly sad, depressed, down, under the weather, whatever you want to call it. Some researchers argue that SAD may have once been adaptive, part of a seasonal slowdown, a kind of mini hibernation. This has always made intuitive sense to me. In winters, there's not only less light, there's less food available and less daylight in which to hunt or gather. So it makes sense to me that we conserve energy in those dark months. After all, animals conserve energy during winter, and some humans may be predisposed to do the same, driven by biology rather than willpower. As one researcher put it, our ancestors who rested more in winter may have survived to see the spring. But in modern life, we can't hibernate. we are expected to keep the same productivity pace year round under often flickering LED lights that never quite fool the brain into thinking it's summer. So why do some of us feel it more than others? I definitely feel it, but my husband doesn't seem to. Science suggests that eye colour and genetics play a role. That got me thinking, why did humans evolve different eye colours at all? I'm kind of surprised I never even thought to ask that question before. So the thing is, for most of human evolution, everyone had dark brown eyes. Lighter eyes, blue, grey, green, hazel, emerged only about 6 to 10,000 years ago, long after humans migrated into northern Europe. So why? Well, there's a few theories around this. One is that new eye colours are a consequence of low light adaptation. So what does that mean? Less melanin, the pigment that gives colour to the iris, allows more light enter the eye. This likely offered an advantage in high latitude environments with long dark winters, helping people see better during low winter light, regulate circadian rhythm more effectively, and maintain vitamin D production because lighter skin and eyes let in more UV light. Another theory relates to sexual selection. There is strong anthropological evidence that unusual eye colours were perceived as attractive or eye-catching, leading to positive selection, particularly in small early Northern European populations. So we're talking about seasonal affective disorder. So how does eye colour relate to this? Well, this is where nuance matters. People with lighter eye colours are more light sensitive. So blue or light coloured eyes have less melanin. They allow more light into the retina. This means that they are more sensitive to bright light. Their circadian systems react more strongly to light exposure. So, does that mean that people with blue eyes cope better or worse in winter? Well, it seems that they might cope better, as some studies suggest that people with lighter eyes may have slightly lower rates of seasonal affective disorder. Why? Because their eyes require less light to trigger the brain's circadian stabilizing pathways. But, and this is important, the effect is modest. Many other factors matter more, like the latitude, genetics related to serotonin, sleep patterns, childhood light exposure, lifestyle, stress experienced across the lifespan. So eye colour is just one piece of the puzzle. It's not the whole picture, but I still think it's kind of an interesting piece of the puzzle. So why did this variation evolve in relation to light? Well, here's the kind of evolutionary logic in a nutshell. When humans left Africa and moved north, days became shorter, winters darker. UV exposure was much lower. So selection pressures favoured traits that allowed more light in, including lighter skin, lighter eyes, lighter hair. Of course, these traits didn't evolve to protect us from seasonal affective disorder. They evolved to keep circadian rhythms, immunity, and vitamin D production functioning in low light environments. Modern seasonal affective disorder emerged because we now live indoors under weak artificial lighting, which hijacks a system that really evolved for full spectrum natural light. So seasonal affective disorder isn't about eye colour. It's about modern life keeping us indoors under dim lighting while our brains are still calibrated for outdoor light and for the sun. Because of this, I've actually modified how I work this year. I've adapted how I work during these autumn winter months to maximize my exposure to light. So on dry days, I spend much of my time as possible outside, exposing myself to as much daylight as I can. I do most of my writing or laptop work in the dark mornings and also in the early dark evenings and on rainy days. Generally speaking, I wake up early, 6:30, and I will work on my laptop maybe till about 10 a.m. has a good chunk of work done. Then if the weather is suitable, I will go outside and work in the garden till the light starts to fade, 4:35ish, and I will then do another couple of hours at my laptop into the evening. And because I rise so early in the morning, I found that I'm ready for sleep much earlier. Because of this little shift, actually, in how I work, I'm noticing that it is much easier to keep to a regular sleep routine, which I've spoken loads about before, is really, really important for good quality sleep and for brain health. So I find that I'm really ready for bed 9-10 o'clock at night, and then I've had a good night's sleep when I wake up at 6:30, ready to face the day. Shifting up what I do and when I do certain things, taking good note of the weather, has really helped me regulate my sleep patterns for the better. And I have noticed, I'll be honest, on days, because I'm human, on days where I've let this slip by staying up late or sleeping later in the morning, I've felt a dip in my mood, definitely, which has actually been a great motivator to stick to my early to bed, early to rise routine. I've also been doing some reading around light therapy. And it seems that sitting in front of a 10,000 lux light box for 30 minutes a day has been shown to lift mood in many people with seasonal affective disorder, often as effectively as antidepressants do. It works best early in the morning, mimicking sunrise and resetting the brain's internal clock. So I bought myself a SAD lamp. I didn't buy one of the hugely expensive ones. In fact, it cost me less than €25. I just did my research to make sure it gave out the required amount of lux, 10,000 lux. I keep it on my bedside table and I turn it on first thing in the morning for 30 minutes while I check emails and get some work done on my laptop. And I know I say it's not good to work in your bedroom, but in the interest of science and my mood, I'm making this an exception. I feel that I can get something done while also exposing myself first thing to this therapeutic light. Exposure to natural light increases serotonin production. It also boosts dopamine release, and it reduces cortisol, which is our main stress hormone. In contrast, prolonged darkness or low light disrupts autonomic balance, and that's our nervous system's natural rhythm between rest and alertness. This helps explain why bright morning light can literally reset your nervous system, improving both mood and the quality of sleep. Anecdotally, I have to say I am noticing a huge difference in my mood, my sleep-wake cycle, and the quality of my sleep. While seasonal affective disorder is, as the name suggests, classified as a disorder, not all scientists agree that SAD is a distinct disorder or indeed a disorder at all. Some see it as the extreme end of a normal seasonal mood cycle. Our ancestors' bodies and brains evolved to slow down when food was scarce and days were short. So in that sense, SAD might simply be our biology protesting against modern artificial rhythms. I have to say, I agree with this view. I've never been diagnosed with SAD or any kind of depression, nor have I ever taken antidepressants. However, I suspect if I went to the doctor with my winter blues, I would be given a diagnosis of SAD. I get depressed in winter and find it hard to cope with life's challenges when my mood is low. But I do think that this is just part of being human. And as with anything to do with humans, you have people who fall along a continuum. People like me and people who have a diagnosis of SAD fall nearer the tails of the normal bell curve. I want to say that it's normal to experience the blues in winter doesn't negate its existence or how detrimental it can be. I personally don't need a diagnosis or a prescription. Rather than medicate my biology, I'd rather adapt my day and introduce habits to maximize my exposure to light, which is what I have done. I think I started doing it early September because that's what the advice said, with regard to the therapeutic SAD lamps, was to start early autumn. I honestly don't think I have a disorder. I just think I'm a human who is affected by the lack of daylight in winter. So, what tools in three can you take away for your super brain kit? Well, I would suggest that if you do find the winter months affect your mood, I would make a point of seeking the morning sun. Within 30 to 60 minutes of waking, step outside, even on a cloudy day. Natural light is far more powerful than indoor light, and it helps reset your circadian rhythm. It boosts serotonin and can anchor your mood for the day. Two, create light anchors indoors. If natural light is scarce, use bright, full spectrum lamps near your workspace. Position them at eye level, not overhead, to stimulate the light cues your brain expects. Think of it as light nutrition for your brain. Three, reframe the winter slowdown. Instead of resisting low energy, align with it. Winter is biologically meant for reflection, restoration, and slower rhythms. By respecting this cycle, you reduce self judgment and make a space for recovery, a key ingredient in resilience. Since adapting my day and using the therapy lamp, I've naturally found myself doing things in the evening that help me to wind down and therefore help me to sleep. I read or listen to books in the evening time. I've actually started knitting, and sometimes I take the colouring books out. I definitely feel happier, more resilient, and I am so not afraid of dark December this year. In fact, I'm looking forward to December for the first time ever. Yeah, but I have a confession to make about that. That's because I've booked a winter sun holiday. I've often thought about it and thought that it might be something that would help. So this year, in the interests of science, I've actually acted on these thoughts. And so for the first time, I am taking, a winter break in the sun. Despite all of our advances in the modern world, our brains are still wired for sunrise and sunset. They're wired for the seasons and for cycles. We can't outsmart biology, but we can work with it, which is what I think I've been doing these last few weeks. So if winter makes you slower, sleepier, or more withdrawn, you're not broken. You're human. Next time you step into the morning light, know this: you're not just waking up your body, you're switching on your brain.